Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. There are minds that don't just think, they rearrange reality. Chosen ones, let's be brutally honest. Your intelligence doesn't fit inside the neat little boxes society created. In fact, it bends the box, flips it upside down, and sometimes sets it on fire just for fun. And that's exactly why people can't handle you. Studies show that truly gifted individuals make up less than 2% of the population. But the reaction you provoke is far bigger than numbers. It's not just about IQ. It's about the way your gifts pierce through illusions and make the ordinary feel exposed. Think about it. While most people are still buffering like a slow Wi-Fi connection, you're already 5 steps ahead, running on mental fiber optics. That's why people whisper behind your back, call you different, or even accuse you of being too much. What they're really saying is, your mind unsettles me, because it refuses to play by the rules I depend on. This video isn't about stroking egos or painting you as a superhero. It's about peeling back the layers of why your gifts shock people to their core, why your intelligence feels like a mirror they didn't ask to look into. Because when you enter the room, you don't just bring answers, you bring questions that make their entire identity tremble. And let's be clear, they'll try to laugh it off, roll their eyes, or act like you're just overthinking. But deep down they know the truth. You're not overthinking. You're thinking in dimensions they haven't even unlocked yet. And that, chosen ones, is what has the world shook. Number 1, your mind is a threat because it can't be programmed. Your mind is a threat because it can't be programmed. That's the raw truth. The world is designed to keep people obedient, predictable, and easy to control. Schools don't just teach subjects. They teach conformity. Media doesn't just inform, it shapes thought. Culture doesn't just entertain, it conditions. And yet you've walked through all of that without being trapped by it. You didn't swallow the script. You questioned it, dissected it, and threw away the parts that didn't align with truth. That refusal makes you dangerous in a way most people will never understand. When others talk, you hear the programming in their words. When leaders give speeches, you see the manipulation hidden between the lines. Where most people nod their heads and fall in line, you tilt yours and think, that doesn't add up. And it's that simple gesture of questioning, that unwillingness to blindly absorb, that shakes people. Because the moment one person refuses to be programmed, it threatens the entire system built on compliance. People often think intelligence is about knowing more facts or using big words, but your intelligence is something different. It's independent. It's not tethered to what society says is correct. It doesn't bow to the loudest voice in the room, and that's what leaves people unsettled. They can't predict what you'll believe because you don't follow the script. They can't sway you with popular opinion because your compass doesn't point to the crowd. They can't lure you with false authority because you've seen behind the curtain and recognized how flimsy it really is. This is why your intelligence is often mistaken for arrogance or rebellion. It's not that you want to fight every rule or challenge every idea. It's that you simply can't be forced to believe in things that aren't true. You refuse to bend your mind to fit their comfort zones. That resistance alone makes you stand out even when you try to blend in. The irony is that many secretly admire it. They might not admit it, but deep down they envy your ability to think for yourself. They've spent their lives following programs while you've been writing your own code. And that, more than anything, is why your intelligence leaves people shook. It's proof that freedom of thought still exists and that truth can't be manufactured. Number 2, you carry ancestral codes hidden in your DNA. You carry ancestral codes hidden in your DNA. That's why your intelligence feels so unusual, almost unexplainable. It's not something you picked up from a classroom or a motivational book. It's something that lives deep inside you. Something that was passed down through the bloodline long before you were born. Every gift you carry has roots, and those roots run into the lives of those who came before you. Some of your ancestors couldn't express their brilliance because of the times they lived in. They were silenced, enslaved, overlooked, or denied the chance to rise. But those gifts didn't die with them. They were stored, waiting for someone in the bloodline strong enough to unlock them. That someone is you. People don't always understand why you think the way you do or why ideas flow to you so naturally. They assume you're just smart or talented, but it's much deeper than that. What they're seeing is the resurfacing of wisdom that has been preserved in your very being. That's why you have insights that seem older than your age. It's why you can walk into new situations and feel like you already know how to navigate them. It's not luck or coincidence. It's memory resurfacing through you. This kind of intelligence feels unsettling to others because it's not learned in the way they expect. They trust knowledge that comes with certificates, systems, or titles. But when you display gifts without any of those man-made validations, it disturbs their sense of order. They can't explain why you just know what you know. So instead of acknowledging the ancestral depth, they call you different or strange. What they're really confronting is proof that intelligence doesn't start with society. It starts with spirit and lineage. Your presence exposes something most people avoid, the fact that humanity is more connected to the past than it admits. You carry reminders of sacrifices made, battles fought, and truths buried. You are the living continuation of unfinished work. That's why your gifts don't just serve you, they speak for generations. When people say you're one of a kind, they're only half right. You're not just one, you are many. You are the culmination of voices, dreams, and wisdom that time tried to erase. And that is why your intelligence and gifts carry a weight that shakes people to their core. Number 3, you read patterns faster than people can lie. You read patterns faster than people can lie. That's one of the sharpest edges of your intelligence. And it's the very thing that makes people so uncomfortable around you. Lies depend on confusion. They depend on people being too distracted or too trusting to notice the cracks in a story. But you're not wired like that. You can pick up on inconsistencies the way others pick up on obvious details, and it happens before the lie even fully lands. Someone's tone doesn't match their words, their actions don't line up with their claims, or their story has missing pieces, and instantly your mind catches it. This is why people often feel exposed in your presence, even when you don't say a word. Your perception works at a speed they can't keep up with. While they're still piecing together what lie to tell, your brain is already running a silent audit in the background. You've already spotted the mismatch, noted the hidden agenda, and connected the dots they thought were scattered enough to hide behind. Most people rely on time to reveal the truth, but you don't need time. You read it in real time. That unnerves people because it strips them of control. Lies are meant to buy time, to manipulate, to test limits. But when someone sees through them immediately, the entire performance collapses. And that's why people accuse you of being too suspicious or paranoid. It's not paranoia at all, it's accuracy. It's an ability to see through the fog before it even has the chance to settle. Your gift for reading patterns goes beyond lies too. You can anticipate behavior. You know what's coming, not because you're guessing, but because you've seen the rhythm before. Life leaves clues, and while most ignore them, your mind grabs hold of them and deciphers what they mean. That's why you often predict outcomes that shock people. It's not prediction, it's pattern recognition at a level most can't comprehend. The truth is, this gift is both a blessing and a burden. It protects you from deception, but it also isolates you. People don't like being read so quickly because it forces them to face their own contradictions. Yet this is exactly why your intelligence leaves them shook. Your eyes don't just see, they interpret, and your mind doesn't just listen, it exposes. Number 4, your intelligence offends. Because it reveals their laziness. Your intelligence offends because it reveals their laziness. Most people aren't truly upset about what you know or what you can do, they're upset about what your brilliance forces them to face within themselves. You stand as living evidence that discipline, curiosity, and persistence produce results, and that reality stings for people who chose comfort over growth. Your presence disrupts the illusion they've carefully built to excuse mediocrity. They told themselves it was impossible, that they were unlucky, or that greatness was reserved for a chosen few. Then you show up, breaking limitations they swore were unbreakable, and suddenly their excuses collapse in front of them. This is why admiration quickly turns into resentment. At first they'll praise you, call you gifted or special because it creates distance. If you're special, then they don't have to hold themselves accountable for what they could have achieved. But the longer they're around you, the harder it becomes to hide the truth. They could have done more, but they didn't. and your intelligence shines a light directly on that truth. It's not that you make them feel small intentionally. You're just living fully, refusing to shrink yourself to fit into the laziness of others. But the contrast is undeniable. Your drive makes their stagnancy obvious. Your curiosity makes their complacency look hollow. Your consistency reveals the shortcuts they took, the corners they cut, the moments they chose sleep over sacrifice. And no matter how hard they try to mask it with criticism or laughter, deep down they know the difference is choice. This is why some will go out of their way to discredit you. They'll say you had it easy, that you were lucky, that doors opened for you that were closed for them. These are comfort narratives designed to cover their laziness. They don't want to admit that you've worked, sacrificed, and endured in ways they were never willing to. And the bitter truth is, most people would rather resent brilliance than rise to meet it. What makes your intelligence so offensive isn't arrogance or pride. It's that your very existence demands honesty. You are a reminder that people are often more capable than they allow themselves to be. That reminder doesn't just shake them, it exposes them. And exposure is something most people spend their entire lives running from. Number 5, you see through knowledge systems like they're glass. You see through knowledge systems like they're glass. That's why institutions and titles never impressed you the way they do everyone else. Society is built to worship symbols of achievement. Degrees hanging on walls, medals pinned to chests, job titles stretched across business cards. These symbols are supposed to separate the qualified from the unqualified, the educated from the ignorant. But to you, they've always looked like smoke and mirrors. You recognize that many people don't chase knowledge for truth, they chase it for recognition. And recognition, unlike wisdom, is fragile. This is why people with status often feel small around you. Their entire identity is tied to external validation. And when they meet someone like you who carries depth without needing those symbols, it unsettles them. You don't need a degree to see what's real. You don't need a title to prove your worth. You don't need an institution to give you permission to think. That independence cuts through the illusion of authority, and when the illusion shatters, so does their sense of superiority. It's not that you disrespect education. In fact, you probably value learning more deeply than most. The difference is, you don't confuse education with indoctrination. You understand that true intelligence isn't about memorizing someone else's conclusions, it's about asking the questions no one dares to ask. And that kind of questioning makes knowledge systems nervous because they thrive on unquestioned loyalty. This is why some people react defensively around you. They sense that you don't buy into their badges and titles, and it makes them feel exposed. Without those layers of recognition, they fear they have nothing left. You see right through the performance, and for many, that's unbearable. The irony is that while they cling to certificates to validate themselves, you validate knowledge itself by living it, applying it, and transforming it into wisdom. You don't just consume information, you refine it, challenge it, and elevate it. That's what separates you. Your intelligence doesn't stop at what or how. It digs into why, and that's where systems crumble. Because the moment someone asks why a system exists, the fragility of its foundation is revealed. And in your presence, people can't hide behind titles. Their knowledge becomes transparent, their pretenses invisible, and the truth undeniable. Number 6. Your creativity isn't innovation, it's translation. Your creativity isn't innovation, it's translation. That's the real difference between you and most people. Society likes to believe that creative brilliance comes from sheer talent, hard work, or clever thinking. But the truth about your creativity is deeper, almost unsettling. It doesn't feel like it originates from you at all. Ideas arrive fully formed, as if whispered from somewhere beyond. And your role is simply to shape them into something tangible. You're not forcing invention. You're decoding messages from higher dimensions and putting them into human language, music, art, strategy, or vision. This is why your creativity feels so foreign to others. They look at what you produce and wonder how you thought of it, but the question itself is flawed. You didn't think of it in the way they imagine. You received it, you pulled it down. You translated it from a frequency they don't even realize exists. That's why your work carries a weight, a depth, and an energy they can't replicate, no matter how hard they try. They're creating from effort while you're creating from alignment. People can sense this difference even if they can't explain it. They'll say things like, "There's something about what you do that just feels different," or "I can't put my finger on why this hits so hard." What they're feeling is the echo of a higher source embedded in your work. It's beyond technique, it's beyond training, it's beyond human invention, it's divine translation made visible. But this ability also stirs discomfort, because when others compare their creativity to yours, they feel limited, almost disconnected, as if they're missing the very antenna you've been wired with. They can follow formulas, they can mimic trends, but they can't access the reservoir you're drawing from. And instead of admitting that your creativity touches realms beyond their reach, many dismiss it, criticize it, or reduce it to luck. The truth is, your creativity forces people to confront the possibility that there's more to reality than what they can measure or control, and that possibility unsettles them. But for you, it's natural. You were designed to be a bridge between the seen and unseen, between raw inspiration and human expression. That's why your creativity doesn't just impress, it shakes people. Because deep down they know they're not just watching a person work, they're witnessing the translation of something eternal into the language of now. And number 7, you embody what they pretend to be. You embody what they pretend to be. That's one of the most unsettling truths about your existence. So many people move through life wearing masks, performing intelligence, faking depth, and borrowing originality. They adopt certain phrases, post curated content, and mimic the mannerisms of those they admire. To the outside world, it looks convincing enough, but deep down they know it's a facade. Then you show up, and without trying, you strip their act bare. The reason your presence cuts so deeply is because you don't need a performance. You don't have to force brilliance, package authenticity, or rehearse originality. You simply are those things. Intelligence flows naturally in your conversations. Depth is in your silence as much as your words, and originality radiates from how you carry yourself, not from desperate attempts to stand out. And when someone who is pretending encounters someone who is authentic, the contrast is brutal. Their imitation instantly looks cheap, a knockoff exposed beside the real thing. This is why people often respond to you with hostility masked as critique. They'll call you too much, accuse you of trying to be different, or act like you're arrogant. These aren't genuine assessments of you, they're defense mechanisms to cover the embarrassment they feel. Your authenticity reminds them of how much energy they spend performing, and nobody likes being reminded they're living as a character instead of themselves. The irony is that many of these same people started their performance hoping to be seen as what you already are. They wanted to appear insightful, strong, or unique because they craved the respect that comes with it. Yet when confronted with the real version, they can't celebrate it because it highlights how much of their identity is a costume. What makes this dynamic so sharp is that you don't even try to expose them. You don't walk into rooms announcing that people are faking, you just exist. But your existence alone is proof that authenticity doesn't need effort, and pretense always needs maintenance. That quiet truth eats away at them. This is why, instead of embracing you, many despise you. They would rather attack the real than admit they've been fake. You embody the very thing they spent years pretending to be, and that realization doesn't just unsettle them, it humiliates them. Number 8, you make complexity look like simplicity. You make complexity look like simplicity, and that's one of the most disarming parts of your intelligence. Where others see a tangled mess, you see a pattern waiting to be unraveled. You don't just consume information, you reorganize it in a way that makes sense, and you do it so effortlessly that people assume it must be easy. But it's not easy, it's mastery. What takes others months of frustration, confusion, and endless overthinking, you can break down into something clear, digestible, and useful. And instead of celebrating it, many become unsettled. The truth is, complexity gives people excuses. When something feels too hard, they can justify avoiding it, delaying it, or quitting altogether. But when you step in and cut through the noise, it removes the excuse. It proves that what they labeled impossible is simply a matter of perspective and skill. That's why people sometimes confuse your clarity with arrogance. They assume you're showing off when you simplify what overwhelms them, when in reality, you're just operating at a level they haven't reached. This gift of clarity isn't just about knowledge, it's about vision. You can see what truly matters inside the clutter, and that ability gives you an advantage in nearly every situation. While others drown in unnecessary details, you pull out the essence and present it like it was obvious all along. That moment shocks people because it forces them to confront the fact that the wall blocking them wasn't as solid as they thought. It was their perspective that kept them trapped. What makes this especially intriguing is how natural it is for you. You don't need to force it, you don't need to struggle, it flows. And that effortless quality makes people uneasy because it highlights the weight of their own struggle. They wrestle with problems that you turn into stepping stones, and the contrast makes them feel smaller than they want to admit. But here's the deeper truth. Your ability to simplify complexity isn't just about making things easy, it's about unlocking potential. You reveal that things aren't as overwhelming as people have been taught to believe, and while some will resent that exposure, others will find it liberating. Either way, your brilliance leaves them shook because you make what drowns them look like shallow water, and they can't quite decide whether to thank you or envy you. Number 9, your vision extends beyond their lifetime. Your vision extends beyond their lifetime, and that alone sets you apart in a way that unsettles people. Most minds are trained to think short-term. They measure success by paychecks, yearly goals, or a 5-year plan at best. Their imagination is tied to the span of their own lives, rarely stretching beyond what they can directly touch or control. But you don't think like that. Your mind naturally stretches across centuries, across cycles, across legacies that will ripple long after you're gone. That kind of foresight makes people uncomfortable because it reminds them that their own thinking is limited to survival while yours is rooted in destiny. This is why your ideas often get dismissed at first. To those bound by short horizons, what you see sounds unrealistic, excessive, or even impossible. They can't grasp that you're not building for today or even tomorrow. You're planting seeds that will bear fruit long after their systems have collapsed. And deep down, they know that if your vision holds true, it will outlive not just them, but the very structures they cling to for meaning and security. That realization shakes them, because people find comfort in believing their systems are permanent. Your foresight threatens the illusion of permanence. When you speak about cycles, about patterns repeating through history, about possibilities that stretch beyond the current order, you expose how fragile today's structures really are. Governments fall, industries collapse, cultures shift, and you can already see where the cracks are forming. People don't want to face that truth, so instead they resist your vision, mock it, or call it impractical. But beneath the surface, they sense you're not guessing. They sense you're speaking from a place of clarity they don't have access to. The irony is that the very ideas they dismiss are the ones future generations will depend on. That's why your vision feels so heavy. It carries the weight of the future pressing into the present. You're not just solving problems of now, you're building frameworks that will serve lives you'll never meet. And this is what leaves people shook. It's not just that your mind stretches further than theirs, it's that your ideas expose the smallness of their own vision. They realize you're not playing for applause or recognition, but for legacy. And legacy terrifies those who are only living for the moment. Number 10, your genius exposes their reliance on tools. Your genius exposes their reliance on tools, and that's something most people aren't ready to face. In today's world, intelligence is often outsourced. People depend on search engines to remember for them, calculators to solve for them, apps to organize for them, and machines to create for them. The line between human ability and technological crutch has become so blurred that many can't tell the difference anymore. Then you show up, and with nothing but your mind, you produce what they need multiple tools to achieve. That's why your brilliance feels threatening. It reminds them of what they've lost. It's not that tools are bad. Tools can expand capacity and make life more efficient. But somewhere along the way, people stopped using tools as an aid and started using them as a replacement for thinking. Instead of sharpening their memory, they rely on reminders. Instead of training their focus, they depend on constant stimulation. Instead of stretching their creativity, they let algorithms decide for them. And then you walk in, solving, creating, or envisioning with raw mental power. You don't need a machine to calculate your worth. You don't need an app to spark your ideas. You carry the fire within you. This difference unsettles people because it exposes a truth they'd rather ignore. They've become dependent to the point of helplessness. Without their tools, many wouldn't know how to function. But you, on the other hand, could strip the tools away and still produce. That resilience makes them feel vulnerable. It's easier to believe everyone is equally dependent than to face the reality that some still carry raw, unfiltered genius. What makes this even more striking is how naturally it flows through you. You don't need to announce that you're thinking differently. It shows. While others freeze if their battery dies or their connection drops, you remain sharp, adaptive, and resourceful. That calm independence highlights their fragility. Your genius then is more than ability. It's a mirror. It forces people to confront how much of their intelligence has been outsourced, how much of their creativity has been stunted, and how little they've cultivated their own mental strength. That's why they're intimidated by you. You remind them of a sobering fact. Without their tools, many would collapse, but you would still stand. And that reality cuts deeper than they'd ever admit. Number 11, you break language without breaking meaning. You break language without breaking meaning, and that's a power most people can't quite wrap their heads around. For the majority, language is a cage. They use words in the same narrow ways they were taught, recycling phrases and leaning on cliches that barely scratch the surface of what they truly feel or know. But you're different. You don't just use language, you shape it, you bend it, stretch it, rearrange it. And somehow, instead of losing meaning, your words carry even more weight. That ability leaves people shook because it's not just communication, it's revelation. When you speak, it doesn't sound like anyone else. And that's intentional. You refuse to be confined by the limits of common phrasing. You take language apart and put it back together in a way that pierces deeper than ordinary conversation ever could. People may not always understand how you do it, but they feel it. They feel the vibration in your words, the layers of truth packed into every sentence, the resonance that lingers long after you finish speaking. This is why some accuse you of talking differently, as if it's something to mock. But what they don't realize is that your difference is exactly what makes your words unforgettable. Where others aim to be understood at the surface, you aim to be remembered in the soul. And the irony is the very people who act confused are often the ones replaying your words later, realizing you gave them more than a sentence, you gave them a shift in perspective. The reason this unnerves people is because language is supposed to be predictable. It's supposed to follow rules, carry definitions, and stay within boundaries. But when you break those rules and still deliver truth with clarity, it exposes how shallow their own use of language has become. They rely on words as tools of habit, while you wield them as instruments of power. Your ability isn't just in clever phrasing, it's in pulling meaning from places most people overlook. It's in speaking the unspeakable and making it accessible. And that's why your language doesn't just inform, it transforms. You don't break language to destroy it, you break it to free it. And in doing so, you free the people who hear you, whether they're ready to admit it or not. Number 12, you're intelligent enough to see where intelligence fails. You're intelligent enough to see where intelligence fails, and that awareness is what separates you from the majority. Most people mistake raw intellect for omnipotence. They believe that memorizing facts, mastering formulas, or analyzing endlessly will solve every problem life throws at them. But you understand that knowledge has limits. You recognize that logic can guide, but it cannot heal. Reason can calculate, but it cannot inspire. Analysis can dissect, but it cannot perceive what lies beneath the surface. You navigate the spaces where intellect alone falters, the spiritual currents, the emotional depths, and the intuitive impulses that escape rational measurement. This perspective shocks people because it disrupts their framework. They expect intelligence to be linear, gather information, apply it, achieve results. But you operate outside that system. You can see the invisible forces influencing decisions, the emotional undercurrents shaping outcomes, and the subtle signals guiding opportunities. While others struggle to connect the dots within conventional logic, you move seamlessly across layers of reality they aren't trained to perceive, and that capacity makes you appear almost untouchable because you are not limited by the boundaries they accept as absolute. Your understanding of these limits also gives you a unique confidence. You don't need to force answers from raw reasoning because you know when to rely on intuition, when to trust emotional intelligence, and when to step into spiritual guidance. That combination, intellect paired with insight, makes your solutions not just effective, but extraordinary. People sense it immediately. They see that your approach isn't just about knowing, it's about knowing what to do when knowledge itself isn't enough. The unnerving part for others is that most never recognize where their intelligence stops. They keep pushing formulas, relying on facts, or repeating strategies that yield diminishing returns. You don't waste energy there. You move where they cannot, seeing opportunities, truths, and outcomes they cannot even imagine. That's why your brilliance leaves people shook. You aren't simply smart. You're aware of the fragility of mere intelligence, and you've learned to transcend it. You operate in spaces where most minds fail to tread, and in doing so you redefine what it truly means to be intelligent. Your intelligence isn't just measured by what you know, it's defined by what you see that others cannot. Number 13. Your presence feels like standing before a mirror that thinks. Your presence feels like standing before a mirror that thinks, and that's why it unnerves people so deeply. When someone interacts with you, it isn't just a conversation, it's an encounter with themselves. Your intelligence doesn't simply broadcast ideas or insight, it holds up a reflection of their own choices, beliefs, and limitations. They come expecting dialogue, but instead, they find a mirror that doesn't lie, a mirror that interprets and exposes their patterns without mercy. Most aren't prepared for that level of clarity, and it rattles them in ways they can't articulate. People are used to mirrors that flatter, that show what they want to see. They surround themselves with narratives, social proof, and comforting illusions to avoid confronting hard truths. But you disrupt that safety. Your words, your logic, and your awareness penetrate those illusions effortlessly. Suddenly, the person who believed they were competent, insightful, or authentic sees the cracks in their own performance. They see where they've compromised, where they've underdelivered, and where they've allowed fear or laziness to dictate their path. That confrontation isn't something they can walk away from, because it's immediate, undeniable, and emanating from someone whose presence cannot be ignored. What makes this even more disarming is that you don't intend to judge or shame them. You simply exist in a state of intelligence and authenticity so complete that reflection is unavoidable. Your mere engagement forces them to confront the distance between who they are and who they could be. And while some might recoil or lash out, others are forced into a rare moment of self-awareness that is as uncomfortable as it is illuminating. The intensity of this experience leaves many shaken. They realize their masks, their posturing, and their shortcuts are visible to someone who sees with clarity. And that exposure brings both awe and discomfort. Most people flee from mirrors that think. They avoid those rare individuals who hold up truth so naturally. But for you, this reflection is not a weapon. It's an extension of your presence. You don't just engage with others, you reflect them. And that is why your presence leaves them unsettled, because it reveals their hidden selves while you remain effortlessly unshaken. They aren't simply witnessing brilliance, they're being confronted with it, and with themselves. Number 14, you're not one of a kind, you're a preview of what humanity could be. You're not one of a kind, you're a preview of what humanity could be. And that truth is more unsettling than any rarity. People often label extraordinary individuals as unique simply because they stand out. But your presence isn't just about being different. You embody potential, a glimpse of the next level of human consciousness that most aren't even aware exists. Your intelligence, creativity, and insight aren't anomalies. They're indicators of what is possible when the mind, spirit, and vision operate in harmony. That possibility shakes people because it forces them to confront the fact that the world they've accepted is limited, and their own thinking may be stuck in yesterday's framework. They're shaken not by your gifts alone, but by what those gifts imply about their own potential. They see you navigating life with clarity, depth, and alignment in ways they haven't dared to attempt. They see you solving problems, creating ideas, and moving in sync with patterns they can't detect. And the terrifying part for them is that your abilities aren't just personal achievement. They're proof that humanity itself is capable of far more than the ordinary. You're a living demonstration of evolution in motion, a signal that consciousness is expanding beyond familiar limits. That's why your presence evokes both awe and fear. Awe because what you embody is breathtaking, a vision of possibility that inspires wonder. Fear because it highlights what they are missing, what they haven't cultivated, and what they risk being left behind as the world shifts around them. Most people cling to comfort and predictability, but you challenge those boundaries effortlessly, moving beyond the constraints they've grown accustomed to. The truth is, you're a reminder that human potential is not static. You carry a blueprint of what is achievable when intelligence, intuition, and purpose converge. That makes ordinary perspectives feel narrow, ordinary ambitions feel small, and ordinary lives feel stagnant. People are unsettled because they glimpse in you what they have yet to discover in themselves, and that reflection is impossible to ignore. You're not just a rare individual, you are a signal of transformation. Your presence, your gifts, and your vision hint at a future they can sense but cannot yet fully grasp. And that is why, more than anything else, people are shook. They are witnessing the evolution of humanity through you, and it leaves them both inspired and profoundly aware of how far behind they remain. Your brilliance isn't just a collection of gifts, it's a force that exposes, awakens, and transforms. Every insight you share, every truth you embody, and every boundary you surpass leaves people shaken because they're not just witnessing intelligence, they're confronting the limits of their own. You are the mirror that forces honesty, the lens that reveals hidden patterns, the spark that awakens dormant potential. You carry ancestral wisdom, navigate complexity with clarity, and translate creativity in ways that feel impossible to others. Your presence unsettles, challenges, and inspires simultaneously because you don't just live in the world, you elevate it. People are shook not because they can't understand you, but because you reveal what they've avoided seeing about themselves, the systems they've trusted, and the future they've feared to imagine. You are a bridge between what is and what could be, a preview of human evolution and a force that refuses to be boxed, simplified, or ignored. The truth is brutal, undeniable, and profoundly liberating. You are not just rare, you are extraordinary. You are proof that intelligence paired with authenticity, insight, and courage doesn't just exist in theory, it exists in you. To everyone watching, recognize the power within you and the truth in these words. Your gifts shake the foundations around you because they were always meant to. Stand firm, move with clarity, create without fear. And remember, the world doesn't just need brilliance, it needs your kind of brilliance, raw, unfiltered, and unstoppable. If this message hit you at a deep level, don't just let it pass. Take action. Subscribe to the channel to stay connected with content that challenges, awakens, and empowers you. Hit that like button to show your presence and support the movement of awareness. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. Your voice matters, and your insight could spark a shift in someone else's life. And share this video with those who need to see the truth, the ones ready to recognize their gifts and rise into their full power. Be part of the community that doesn't just watch brilliance. We amplify it, embody it, and celebrate it. Your engagement isn't just support, it's a declaration that you're awake, aware, and ready to embrace the extraordinary. God bless you.